Alright guys, it's that time of the year. The time of the world's most powerful models. OpenAI releases the best model, Gemini comes back, Claude hits back, and repeat. But today, we're going to talk about Claude Opus 4.5. Let them enjoy their rise to fame for a few weeks before Grok releases a new model and before we get a new open source Chinese model that will tank the stock market. In this video, I'll share with you everything you need to know about Opus 4.5, what makes it special, and some insights that are perhaps not covered in other videos. As usual, before I get into Opus 4.5, let's take the historical context of Anthropic into account. 2020, Dario Amodei, now CEO of Anthropic, was a top executive at OpenAI. But, and there's always a but, he disagreed with OpenAI's direction, who focused too much on speed and not safety. So he left with a bunch of safety-focused researchers. In 2021, he starts Anthropic with the mission to build AI with heavy emphasis on safety. And early days were pure research, no products yet, nothing fancy. March 2023 comes in, Claude 1 was released. Not too much traction or hype, which is not surprising because people were still obsessed with ChatGPT's launch. In July 2023, Claude 2 was released, which was bigger and smarter. Then, March 2024, Claude 3 family were released, crushing benchmarks in reasoning and coding. And this is where the hype exploded, especially for coding, and it quickly became coders' choice. September 2024 comes in, an engineer prototypes Claude Code as an internal tool to help Anthropic improve developer productivity. It was so good that they released it to the public and it exploded. May 2025, Claude 4 family were released. They called it the world's best coding model, as they said, and everyone started to copy that line afterwards. Finally, November 24, 2025, Claude Opus 4.5 was released. Opus 4.5 is Claude's frontier reasoning model, and it is a hybrid reasoning model, which means the user can toggle between the default mode of quick responses or extended thinking. And it has a token window of 200,000 tokens compared to 1 million in Gemini 3 as an example. It was trained on internet data up to May 2025. It was also trained on data from users who opted in to have their data used for training, so if you toggle that in Claude, better luck next time. It used your chat history for training. It was also trained on data generated internally at Anthropic, likely from their internal research, and there's also proprietary data from third-party partnerships as well. Opus 4.5 costs twice as much as Gemini 3 Pro, depending on how many tokens are used. However, it is 3 times less expensive compared to Opus 4.1, and a lot more intelligent, which is great to see. The cost of tokens going down, but the quality going up. Opus 4.5 beat Sonnet 4.5 on SWE Bench Verified, I'll talk more about that benchmark later on, while using 76% fewer output tokens. And it's great to see that token efficiency. It also has better usage limits, so you can have the same token limits as Sonnet limits, which was unheard of for the Opus family. Also, important things to highlight, there are extra API features that not many people are talking about. Number 1, there's an effort parameter controlling how eager Claude is about spending tokens. And number 2 is context compaction. This automatically manages conversation context by generating summaries when token usage grows too large. And last but not least, advanced tool use. This allows Claude to discover and execute tools a lot more efficiently. Let me explain what I mean by that. Firstly, to take a step back, agents work with a lot of tools, especially coding agents, and especially with MCP, which makes it easier to integrate with a bunch of tools. This is all well and good, but the tool results and definitions can consume a lot of tokens, so it can easily fill up the context window, which typically causes output quality degradation. Claude recognized this problem and said, instead of putting that burden on the developer to manage that context, let's just solve the problem ourselves and plug it into the API. So Claude did 3 things in particular. Number 1, they implemented tool search. So tool definitions themselves, since they are passed to the model, consume lots of tokens. And that's before the conversation even starts. Not only that, too many tools can confuse the model, and it ends up selecting the wrong tool. With tool search, instead of loading all tool definitions up front, the tool search tool discovers tools on demand, and Claude only sees the tools it actually needs for the current task. And this is just a parameter in the API. Number 2 is programmatic tool call. So instead of Claude requesting tools one at a time, with each result being returned to its context, Claude writes code that calls multiple tools, processes their outputs, and controls what information actually enters its context window. Last but not least, they implemented tool use examples. So the JSON schema that defines the tool structure cannot express usage patterns. Tool use examples lets you provide sample tool calls directly in your tool definitions, which is very good for tools with not very obvious usage. And the last thing I'll say for an update, this is more than just a model upgrade, but an ecosystem boost. Claude Code with Opus 4.5 is now available in Claude Desktop app. It's also available in Claude Chrome, which allows you to automate tasks like scheduling meetings as an example. And it's also integrated in Claude for Excel. So you can use that to create things like pivot tables as an example. And benchmarks, fancy benchmarks. There's a lot of YouTubers talking about benchmarks, so I'm not going to go through that in a lot of detail, but worth calling out that Anthropic talks about benchmark decontamination. This means that they make sure they don't include benchmarks in their training data for evaluation integrity. Otherwise, they can just cheat those benchmarks. So it's worth calling that out. The most important benchmark, and one that is frequently called out by Anthropic, is SWE Bench, which is the current gold standard for coding benchmarks. It consists of around 2,000 actual GitHub issues pulled from 12 popular Python repositories. Each task is a genuine bug report or feature request that was solved by a human contributor in the past. Gemini 3 Pro claimed 76.2% in November 18. GPT 5.1 Codex Max claimed 77.9% in November 19. And Opus 4.5 claimed 80.9% just in November 24, 2025. You can see it on this chart as well. But don't let Anthropic fool you, because they definitely fooled me. The reason why you visually see massive differences, but not in the numbers, is because it starts at 70. But this model is really, really good at coding. I've tried it myself. Also, on their safety reports, there were two things worth mentioning. They only had 1.2% dishonesty rates, which was down from 29% in Opus 4.1. This is when AI stays truthful when a user's question is built on a wrong premise, where the AI just goes along with the user. So if you say, why did Taylor Swift win the Nobel Prize in physics, which is ridiculous, AI doesn't just go along with you. So that dropped from 29% to 1.2%. Number two is agentic safety. So Opus 4.5 refuses 88% of malicious computer tasks, like DDoS scripts as an example, up from 67% from Opus 4.1. And I'll wrap it up by saying, I'm a big fan of Anthropic and have always relied on their models, especially for coding. I think they are underrated, especially in larger consumer use. And Anthropic has been very influential in the AI industry, and they often don't get as much credit. For example, they invented responsible scaling plans, RSPs, which is basically a self-imposed rulebook. So if a model hits certain danger levels, like being too good at hacking, they stop training or deployment until safety fixes are in place. And that forced the whole industry to think about scaling safety instead of just scaling forever. OpenAI and Google now have similar policies, but Anthropic started it. And number two, they invented constitutional AI. So they launched this with Claude 1 in 2023, which is their way of training models to follow a set of rules, like being honest or avoiding bias. And this solved a ton of hallucination problems. And lastly, they invented Model Context Protocol. Yes, they created MCP, which is the open standard for models to connect to tools. And this is becoming an industry best practice. So they've done a lot for the industry, and they deserve the spotlight. But we all know that's not going to stay for too long.